Welcome to the class of Microbe and Radar Engineering. This is lecture number 15 and subject code is KEC074. In the today's lecture, we will start with the microwave tubes, and in the starting we will discuss why microwave tubes, why vacuum tubes will not be used at microwave frequencies, and as time permits, then we will discuss about the two cavity klystron. Now, microwave tube, first we will discuss about the limitation of conventional active devices at microwave frequencies, and second is the two cavity klystron. Now see, what are the conventional microwave devices, conventional tubes? Conventional tubes are vacuum triodes, tetrodes, pentodes. These are the these are the transistors, are less useful signal sources at frequencies above 1 GHz. Means these cannot be used as for the microwave generators. This cannot be used for microwave generators at, or you can say these vacuum tubes cannot generate the signals above the 1 GHz frequency. So generation of microwave tubes, microwave frequency generally done by what? Microwave tubes and the semiconductor based devices, which are MPAT, RAPAT, and these microwave tubes are the two cavity klystron, multi cavity klystron, vacuum magnetron, TWT. These are the microwave tubes. So what are the limitations of microwave conventional devices which cannot be used for generating the microwave frequencies? First one is the inter-electrode capacitance and lead inductance effect, transit time effect, gain bandwidth product, and the radiation loss and the I square yani ki dissipation loss. First one is the high frequency limitations of the conventional tubes. First is the lead conductor and the inter-electrode capacitance effect. When I say that I'm using a very high frequency, when I'm using a very high frequency, inter-electrode capacitance, the role of inter-electrode capacitance and the lead inductance plays a major important role in the amplification of the signal. Clear? So when the frequency is low or medium, when the frequency is medium, not very low, when the frequency is medium, so inductance and inter-electrode capacitance can be ignored. The effect of inter-electrode capacitance and inductance can be ignored. So the inter-electrode capacitance at low or medium frequency provide a large capacitive reactance with no serious effect. But when the frequency is drastically increased, the capacitive reactance becomes very small. When it becomes very small, it means there will be a short signal. Okay? Capacitive reactance means that is Xc will become almost equal to 0. Clear? So higher the frequency, larger the inter-electrode capacitance, and higher will be the current pass through this capacitance. Now see, if this is a inter-electrode capacitance effect, now when the current is passing this at very high frequency, this C plays a major role. This capital C, this inter-electrode capacitance value become very large, and due to this, higher will be the current passing through this capacitor. As the frequency of the input signal increases, the effective grid to ground cathode impedance of the decreases because of the decrease in the reactance of the inter-electrode. Means as the frequency is very high, Xc decreases, and due to the decrease in Xc, input impedance becomes very smaller. When input impedance becomes very smaller, you will see here that inter-electrode capacitance value increases at very high frequency. Clear? Zin becomes very small. Clear? Input impedance become very small. Clear? And lead inductance when at high frequency, lead inductance produces what? Degenerative feedback path. Due to the degenerative feedback path, we will see that efficiency it reduces. Clear? So that's why we cannot use the vacuum tubes at very high frequencies. Clear? Next point is the gain bandwidth product. Gain bandwidth product limitations. Now you will see that the gain bandwidth product is generally what? At medium frequencies is generally independent of frequency, but higher gain for a given tube can be achieved only by its narrow bandwidth. We know that the gain bandwidth product is what? Constant. If I want to get the higher gain, bandwidth has to be narrowed down. Clear? But if I want to achieve the overall gain with a high bandwidth, because at microwave frequency the bandwidth is high, but we cannot achieve the higher gain over a broad bandwidth in microwave devices. So that's why we always used to have a slow wave structure for microwave, generating a microwave signals. Okay. Next one is the Aeroflosses. That is first one is the skin effect loss, which can be used by increasing the current carrying area, which in turn increases the inter-electrode capacitance, limits the high frequency. Clear? Skin effect is also increase the inter-electrode capacitance. Clear? Next one is the radiation loss. At higher frequencies, the length of the leads approaches to operating wavelength. Clear? Results in trans radiating. Clear? Because higher frequency, when frequency is very high, wavelength become smaller, and when the wavelength becomes smaller, the length of the lead approaches to what? Operating wavelength, and it starts radiating. Clear? So the radiation loss increases with increase in frequency, and it is a very severe effect at microwave frequencies. Next one is the transit angle effect. As the transit angle, what is transit time? Transit time of a tube is time taken by the electron to travel from inter-electrode distance. Clear? So at microwave frequency, the electron beam oscillates back and forth in the region between cathode and anode, which may return to the cathode. Overall result is the reduction of operating frequency and the tube. Means if I say transit angle effect, means it is the spinning effect of the what? Electron. Clear? Now when the frequency becomes higher, the electron speed or transit time what? Decreases, which is transit time becomes very large compared to the time period of the signal. Therefore it cannot be neglected. Clear? Means that electron speed, transit time becomes very comparable to the time period of the signal. Clear? At very high frequency, transit time of electron will further very large increase to the even greater than the time period. Therefore that's why we cannot neglect the transit angle effect. Clear? Now we will discuss the classification of microwave tubes. This classification is generally categorized into two classes, that is linear beam tubes and the cross field tubes. In the linear beam tubes, you will see that emitted from electron receives a potential energy from DC beam voltage accelerate towards the anode. Clear? In this here you will see that the interaction between the electron with the microwave field, either the electron get accelerated or deaccelerated. So in the linear beam tube you will see the bunching, you will see mainly the bunching effect and the velocity modulation. Clear? So linear beam tubes are further divided into two parts, cavity and the slow wave structure. In the cavity, you will see that the resonant cavity will be there, and on using the resonant cavity and the bunching cavity, klystron will be there, and klystron have a further part, that is reflex klystron. In the slow wave structure, we use some slow wave structure which slow down the electron speed or vary the electron speed. So these are further divided into two parts, forward wave and the backward wave. Clear? Now next one is the first topic we will discuss about the klystron. So klystron is a very important class of microwave sources. It is a very good microwave source. It is invented by Varian brothers in 1939, and in this we will study about the two cavity klystron, multi cavity klystron amplifier and the reflex klystron oscillator. So basically we will discuss about the two cavity klystron, in which basic principle of operation is the velocity modulation and the current modulation, and the bunching process, that is a current modulation. Clear? Now see this one here. In the two cavity klystron, you will see that this is a cathode which generates the electron, which releases the electrons, and this anode is having a positive, some type of positive potential which focuses the electrons, because the here electrons will be in the spreading wave. So these mainly focus the electron in a straight line. Clear? Now there is first cavity is known as the buncher cavity, and the second cavity is known as the catcher cavity. Clear? So buncher cavity, in this you will see that in the buncher cavity there is a RF input which provides some RF signal to this cavity, means resonant cavity. Sometimes here it is positive, and sometimes here is negative, and sometimes it becomes what? Negative, and here becomes what? Positive. It is just like if I say these are the electrons going over this direction. So this one is the cavity which is along this direction. Clear? And this one is a two-dimensional figure. Clear? Next one is the catcher cavity, which receives which collects the kinetic energy of electron and convert it to the RF energy. Clear? Or collect the electrons. Clear? Now you will see that the here bunching electrons, these RF input provides this one, and this microwave signal, this RF signal get interacted with the electron, and on interacting with the electron get bunched, and some electrons get what? Increases, speed of some electron get increases, some electrons some speed is get decreases. Clear? So due to the variation of speed of electrons due to this RF field, the bunching process will be there. Some electrons will be in bunching process, and the distance between these two, buncher cavity and the klystron catcher cavity, is known as the drift space. Clear? Now in the catcher cavity, when there is a retarding field which interact with what? Retarding means negative potential. Retarding field interact with the electron, the speed get what? Decrease, and some of the kinetic energy of the electron get transferred to the what? This field, and when the energy is transferred into this field, here the amplification process will be here. In the catcher cavity, in the RF output. Now see the main working of this klystron amplifier, two cavity klystron. Now see this one. If I say this initial speed of electron is V0. Clear? So when these electrons are going on, some of same speed, almost of all electrons are of same speed. Now when this electrons going over this cavity, these electrons will get interacted with the RF field of the buncher cavity. So when the electron interact with the positive cycle of this RF field, the electron speed increases, and when the electron speed interact with its 0 point, the speed remains same, and when the electron interact with the negative field, electron speed is deaccelerated, means speed slow down. So due to the variation of the electron speed, some electrons speed increases, some get decreases, some get remain. So at the end of this, when the electron goes to the catcher cavity, electron becomes a bunching process, means electron will be moving in the bunch. Clear? Now see how. See this one. This is buncher cavity, which is providing some signal. Clear? And on interaction with this RF field, when there is a negative field, clear, the speed of electron becomes slower and it takes a larger time to reach at some point. Clear? And when it interacts with what? TB. This is TB, means zero field. There is no same field, same electron speed will be there. And when it interacts with the positive field of this RF input, interact, the electron speed increases, and they all meet at some point, at some time, and at this time bunching will be there. Clear? So this one is known as the Applegate diagram. Applegate. Now see construction: cathode to emit electrons, anode to accelerate electrons, buncher cavity to it helps in velocity modulation. Velocity modulation is what? The variation in electron velocity in the drift space is known as the velocity modulation. Clear? The drift space where the electron bunching takes place, catcher cavity to absorb the energy from electron beam, collectors to collect the electron. Clear? So basic principle is velocity modulation and the current modulation. Now the electron beam contain AC component is said to be the current modulated. So electron beam, why it is known as the current modulated? It contains the AC component. Now see this one, the basic principle that the kinetic energy of the moving electron beam is utilized for amplifying and generating a microwave signal. How? Interaction between the field and the electron beam is allowed to occur only at the cavities of the system, that is a buncher cavity and the catcher cavity. Now see the variation in velocity of electron while moving inside the tube is known as the velocity modulation. This velocity modulation permits the bunching of electron while propagation. Hence the combined energy of bunched electron is transferred to the output, thereby providing an amplified signal. So these bunched electrons have very high energy. These bunched electrons have very high energy, and these bunched electrons have a very high energy when it interacts with the what? Retarding field of this cavity. It loses its energy, and the energy, with we know that the principle of conservation of energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. So when it loses its energy, the energy goes to what? Field of this catcher cavity, and there we will get the amplified output, which is having a very high frequency, and the rest of the electrons will get collected by the collector. Now see the electron beam is produced by the, now see the electron beam is produced by the cathode by making a use of heating element. Clear? So to allow the focused propagation of electron beam, an external electromagnetic binding is there, that is the anode field, which provides the focusing. These are act as a focusing electrons. Clear? Now, the amplified signal, RF signal, achieved at the catcher cavity, and a collector is present at the. Now see this one. Electrons in a beam leaving the source at high velocity all have roughly equal velocity, with no applied electron along the path. The electron will continue with this until terminating. Now see, when it interacts with what? When it interacts with the RF field of the buncher cavity, clear? The field the electron speed get varied. Now see this one, how the first cavity resonator is supplied with a very high frequency, with weak high frequency signal, which has to be amplified. High frequency signal the other, which has to be amplified. Clear? So this signal will initiate an electromagnetic field inside the cavity. When you will see here that when input is provided at this will create what? Electric field, and sometimes it becomes here positive and sometimes it becomes negative. The electron, now see, due to this field, the electron that passes through the cavity resonator means buncher cavity. Are modulated on arriving at the second resonance. The electrons get induced with another EMF at the same frequency. This field is strong enough to extract the large signal from the second cavity. Clear? Now you will see here that I have written that the electric field on the resonator keeps on changing its direction of the induced field, and as the electrons are negatively charged, they are accelerated if moved opposite to the direction of the electric field. Clear? They are get accelerated, means when there is a positive, electrons get accelerated, and when there is a negative, the electron get deaccelerated. Okay? While moving these electrons through the field space, this is not stripped space. Okay? With varying speed, which create electron bunches. These bunches are created due to the variation in the speed of light. Clear? So these bunches enter the second resonator. When these bunches enter the second resonator with the frequency corresponding to the frequency at which the first resonator oscillates, the electron, because in the catcher cavity, when these high speed bunch electrons interact with the retarding field of the catcher cavity, because in the next cavity you will see that the bunches enter the second cavity with a frequency corresponding to the frequency at which first resonator oscillates. When it interacts with the retarding field of the catcher cavity, the electron will lose its energy, and the energy will get transferred to the what? To the energy of the catcher cavity. When it transfers its energy, the signal becomes amplified. The electron, while passing through the second cavity, few of them are accelerated, and while bunches of the electron are deaccelerated. Hence, all the kinetic energy is converted into the electromagnetic energy to produce the output signal. Clear? But there has to be some distance between the buncher cavity and catcher cavity, so in such a way that these bunches will always interact with the negative field of the RF field. But when it interacts with the positive field of the RF field, the electrons bunches speed will further get increased and will be collected at the collector. So we have to be aware that, or we have to be noted that these bunches should be interact with the negative field of this RF field. Otherwise, it will not give its energy to the this electric field inside the buncher cavity. When it interacts with the negative field, then only the electron will get transfer its energy to this RF field. Clear? So that's why the efficiency of this two cavity klystron is low as compared to the multi cavity klystron. Clear? The book I have referred for preparing these slides, that is Microbe Devices and Circuits, and some material will be also be referred from another book. Thank you.